Professor for Macmillan. Well, I used to work, probably remember me, some of you from last year's Hook Understand, and now I do the methodology and other presentations. And, well, the topic you've seen already in the schedule, so I suppose that you have some expectations as to what we should discuss. And I would actually like to hear first, before I start giving my view of the topic, I would like to hear your opinions on what you are expecting to hear, actually, to see whether we have similar opinions or whether the topic will be fulfilled in the way that you expected. So, any ideas what I'll be talking about? I had a question earlier about whether we will talk about pronunciation like Globish English and different varieties. Maybe some other ideas? Have you thought about what you would like to hear from this presentation? Hello. Nice to see you.
Something that interested me from the description in your abstract was about students' perceptions of what they expect that they're going to be getting, so I was interested in that.
So you would like to see their side of the story, so to say. Good. Okay. Any other thoughts? No? Well, probably, I mean, during the presentation you'll probably agree on many things because they do come from practical experience in teaching in classrooms, so it's not just pure theory, but it's integrated into practical application, which you will actually be able to try out on your own at the end of the presentation. Well, the last 15 minutes of our presentation will be practical creation of the lesson plan, which you could have seen also in the abstract. And you will do it on the books on the Global from Violeta Lindsay-Clarke, who is here also with us. Thank you for coming. And, well, you'll get the books also to try to use them in your classrooms in the end. So, wait also for other parts to come. Regarding the trends altogether, well, there are many different features regarding the teaching of English as a second language. The main thing actually that, well, probably you've noticed in the difference of new course books that you can see is the shift from teaching and learning isolated style of language towards the overall meaningful language. So considering that this global trend and the trend of globalization has actually meant integrating all different aspects of not just language but of the world into the language, it means that students are, well, teachers as well, are more pressured with today's needs of teaching the language as quick as possible and teaching different aspects in a variety of materials. So, one of the things that I'd say is a basic feature of teaching English as a second language is that it fulfills students' immediate needs for English. What would be their immediate needs? Could somebody maybe say? Does it depend on the levels, on the institutions, on the personalities? What types of needs would you have to fulfill in English for students? What do they expect to get at a lesson from you?
Something that they can use in a real life situation.
Yeah, basically.
That they get out of the classroom.
Yeah, so basically it means that it depends on the student. You cannot give a universal lesson to every class, but you have to actually see. Hi, come in. You have to see actually. Hello. Have to see which type of students you have, and basically you have to act accordingly and adjust the materials to that. That's the first thing you start with. You start actually with thinking of what they should go out with from the lesson. Okay. The second thing makes a real difference to a student's day-to-day experience. How are they going to feel it? I mean, you can teach them whatever you want in a classroom, but will they really be aware that they know it? How is the teacher going to push this awareness in the classroom? That they actually can do it? I suppose
Simulating situations.
Simulating? Okay. Well, basically, I suppose that a lot of you have encountered these surveys at the end of the classes, lessons, presentations, depends, in which the students usually give good grades to the teachers, but they're kind of self-critical towards, towards themselves. They usually give a lower mark for themselves. What do you think the problem is there? They really don't know, or what could be the reason of it?
Well, it can be personal.
It can be, okay, it can be also psychological factor, sure, okay. But also something that usually lacks in classrooms is this sort of pep talk from the teacher, in the sense of making them aware that they actually can do that. A lot of previous teaching was done on a lot of input, but not making the students aware that they actually can communicate in the situation. Simulating the situations is the, let's say, one step before the final version of actually making them aware by motivating them that they can actually do it in their surroundings. Okay. Well, skills, I'm sure you've seen the transfer in this way of teaching. It's not anymore about teaching just topics, grammar, but everything is integrated into this multifunctional environment, which means it's not only about the language anymore, it's about the skills. Even if you taught them a different language, even if you taught them a native language, the skills would also be another threshold to pass. And cultures, again, another way of expanding on the topic of the global community and on different aspects of students' personality. And the last one, regarding student-teacher partnership. What would the partnership refer to? Usually they talk about student-teacher relationship. And this partnership, how has it shifted? How does the teacher behave towards the student? Does he do like, okay, listen to me? Or what is the main communication between the teacher and the student? It's more like a friendship. Well, maybe it's more difficult, obviously, in elementary schools and high schools, but even there are levels of actually making students feel important. So making them aware that they can actually influence in a way in the classroom, they can contribute to the topic, which actually makes them more interested in the situation. Right? Okay, so as you can see, the first one, I would like you to tell me, while looking at these bullets, what the main, let's say, 2 words would be, or the key features within these bullets. For example, in the first one, you would actually individuate immediate needs. What would be the 2 main words in the second one? Sorry?
Real difference.
Real difference, yeah. Okay, real difference, or make difference, basically, to know. The third one? Sorry?
Assertiveness. Skills.
Yeah, okay. Or basically, again, skills. Well, I actually skipped teaches. Well, assertiveness is a type of a skill also, so it teaches skills, not just the language. In the following one,
Cultures.
Cultures, 2 words, to teach us cultures, right? Or various cultures, and obviously student-teacher partnership, right? Now, to see whether you've actually been listening carefully, let's do the other way around. You have the keywords. Could you retell us what the topic was about? Okay, Daniela, please. Immediate needs. What? I mean, you don't have to, give me the identical sentence from before, but just to give, the meaning of the whole.
I remember it fulfills immediate needs.
Okay, fulfills immediate needs of the students. Makes difference? Where?
Day-to-day.
Today experience. So they see every day, they notice a change, an upgrade in their language. I mean, day to day meaning obviously after the lesson. Depends how many times a week you have the lesson. Leadership skills or skills? Teaches them skills, among others. Various cultures? Well, cultures refer not just to the usual description of a culture, right? Cultures refer to different things like local, corporate, national, whatever. Right? Culture is everything around us. You just have different definitions of it. And the last one, student-teacher partnership. How has it changed from student-teacher relationship? Remember? This communication.
The relationship is equal.
Yeah, well, it's more, of an equal. It's more of a friendship type of a, I help you, you help me. Well, this is also particularly visible in business English. When you teach adults, that's
less in primary school.
Yes, but again, what I said in primary, you have to have more of an authority. I mean, you always have to have an authority, but even in primary school, you should show the pupils, in this case, that you do respect what they want to learn about. It's not just, implementing your own.
But it is also great when you teach business English in adults that you learn a lot from them. You basically,
it's a two-way relationship. Well, that's where everybody's expert in his or her area, so you basically cooperate and you get a good goal. Yeah, exactly. Okay, So everything in the end basically revolves around this meaningful idea that whatever you do, you should be able to, at any stage you teach or learn, you should be able to realize why you're doing it, what the reason of it is. If you find yourself in the middle of a lesson thinking, why are we learning this or why am I teaching this, it's not good. It's again connected to the global way of life. Everything's quicker, everything is more, let's say, intense, everything's stressful, so you have to actually give them immediate tools for that. Okay. Well, this will maybe be odd to see in a lesson of methodology in English, but I would kindly ask somebody to read maybe Eva, the Declaration.
Oh, lovely. There was a Declaration of Human Rights. Education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and to the strengthening of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. It shall promote understanding, tolerance and friendship among all nations, racial and religious groups.
Thank you. Obviously this is just a part of it, and it refers to education in general, but again, our area is education. When you look at this vision of education, how could you connect it to this previous idea of meaningfulness? Why would this be interesting to look at? This overall meaningfulness, we said, the aspects of English you teach students. Any idea? What are you developing in students?
It's more talking about individuals and tolerance of differences.
Okay, that as well. Okay, what else? What aspects of language are you developing in students as compared to, let's say, 20 years ago? What are the topics?
Communication.
Okay, communication, anything else?
All different kinds of skills.
All different kinds of skills. Where does that
Presentation,
reflect
speaking.
here? These skills reflected in? You're developing not just the language anymore.
Personality.
Personality. You're developing, well, in the language you have all types of topics that are either part of their personality or contribute to their personality. So that's the full development. Education in general should actually be that, but language itself also, again, develops everything, starting from skills towards, other aspects. Just to remind you, I haven't actually, well, to tell you that I haven't said it at the beginning, you will get all the materials, you will get even the copies of the handout, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, well, competences, again, another word that is more dominant in the language. Anybody who would maybe be able to make a difference between language and competence? What's a language and what's having competences and having language skills?
So when you use a system, competences are the way you use the system.
Okay, so language is a part of competences, right? Anything else that is within the competences? You can know the language, but it doesn't mean you're competent to speak or that you're competent to communicate. Competences is a more complex idea, right? Okay, so for example, that's again this distinction between teaching previously and now. Previously, I always say like around 20 years ago, but again, depends on the levels of development. Grammar was always the focus of teaching, right? Teachers are always focused on that. Today, it's more about the language and cultural knowledge. Again, I have to emphasize that culture, again, doesn't mean just this general idea about culture, but different types of culture that a person runs into. Constant vocabulary changes, something that has to be always kept up with, especially, well, teachers and students. That's why we have all these new course books, all these changes, because basically you cannot teach something that was done 20 years ago. Not just the meaning that has changed, but also the words themselves. How about this one? Probably, there has been a lot of debate between accuracy and effective communication.
Depends on what you're teaching.
Okay.
Sometimes you expect them to be accurate, and sometimes
Okay.
you just want them to be able to communicate.
Okay, what's the, let's say, predominant idea of the linguists today? What do they prefer? What do they put the accent on? Effective communication. Effective communication, that's the first thing. Well, we all have a bit of this, of course, as teachers, the will and the desire to teach them accurate way of speaking, but again, you can have students, maybe you've seen them and had them in your classrooms, who are perfect in pronunciation and writing, but they just don't know how to come across. So that's also difficult topic there. Okay? Oh, we've actually discussed this already, the student partnership with the teacher, or managers and mentors. How do you feel today in your classrooms? I mean, well, who, for example, teaches adults in your classroom? Okay. How do you feel about this new role of teaching and the authority? Is the authority very visible? Or in which way?
Guiding students through.
Exactly. I always say, especially since I'm from Dalmatia, I always say that my motto is the less I do something and you do the more, the better it is for everybody. Because, you know, it's true. Because the more you guide them and the more they do practical things, the better it will stay. It's like driving a car, right? If you sit in the driver's seat, you will remember the way. If not, it's very difficult to remember it, right? Okay, well, skills-based approach will do some things about it later on, but again, it's more functions within the language. It's not just the grammar or isolated vocabulary. And something maybe new for some people, and a term in linguistics that I don't know if somebody's heard of it, the bottom-up versus top-down approach. Well, the words themselves actually have a logical meaning. Any idea what it means? What's a bottom-up approach? What does it mean to do things bottom-up?
Presumably they're like coming from students up to.
Okay, for example, when you teach vocabulary and you do it bottom-up, any idea? What does it mean bottom-up?
So items are not connected.
Okay, yes, you start with an isolated thing and you move your way towards a more general meaning. Top-down is the opposite. You start with a general picture and you go down. What would be a modern, let's say, approach?
Top down.
Top-down, exactly. You start with a general picture and then you go towards the isolated sentences. Well, again, if you compare it to the previous teaching, you remember, well, probably all of us have learned present perfect, the famous present perfect and other things in isolated sentences, not so many texts, not so many connections to the practical world. So that's the bottom-up approach. It doesn't mean, obviously, that today you will use only top-down approach. You will use a mixture of both, but you have to start with a meaningful idea, not with the isolated sentences. Okay, and CLIL. Maybe you encountered it. You've heard it definitely at conferences. Content and language integrated learning. Do you know what it is? Well, for example, when you teach mathematics or biology in English, when you teach students of foreign language, when you teach them, it means that that's, let's say, the utmost version of integrating skills and language. So you learn everything in English, but it's not anymore for the sake of English as a language, but for the sake of another topic. That would be clear. And it's becoming more and more used. Okay. Considering what you've heard, I will give to some of you some cut-up ideas that you will try to explain to me in, let's say, more simple vocabulary. There you are. You can do it in pairs. Well, I would just like you to read them out loud and to tell me what they would refer to. So you can discuss with them. There you are. Oh, sorry. Okay. And I have a corner there. There you go. Okay, so they are, I mean, a bit more fancy terms, so to say, because they come from theoretical. But that's what I would like to hear from you, the practical or simpler version of what they would refer to. So, each of you, whoever has a card should read it, your group should explain it and tell me whether that thing is in, considering what we've heard, or out.
The question is this in or out?
Or out. So first you should read the statement. Tell me what it refers to. And tell me, considering what we talked about, whether it's an in way of thinking or out. Okay, discuss with the partner.
Your thing is in.
And you have to argue it, obviously.
This one is It's back to you.
showing the result is
Maybe it's in. Have they ever been out? What do you think? Saying that learning languages is.
There's another aspect of this. No, of course.
It has been.
I didn't know you would
They're really,
I think we recognize that it's a legitimate mistake to make. So you say, of course you can make immense mistakes because learning is difficult. Yeah, I recognize that it's difficult. It's a very tricky one.
Behind me, they said this.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, that's it.
Because basically, there's no point in convincing something that something is easy if it's not.
Right. If you say it's easy, then you feel stupid if it's not easy.
Exactly.
If you say that it's hard, then you're setting them up like, oh, now we're going to do something really hard, discouraging them from the beginning.
But if they make a mistake, it's fine because nobody's going to make it easy.
Right, of course, you're trying to do something.
You're putting it in respect.
So I would say they're both.
Sorry,
I would
come to an argument.
set it up by saying, okay, now we're going to do something easy, but I wouldn't set it up by saying, now we're going to do something
You
hard.
wouldn't label it either way. Yeah. I'm labeling it.
I mean, it's, everything is hard.
so you're
Anything that's hard.
We're out.
Okay, I hear also some very in and very out things we can't even grade them.
It's so, I don't know. Saying and learning. I don't know. I think it's not saying what is it? Saying that I think opposites. Are we supposed to be both learning languages?
Motivate the students to how to
Just like that.
make the whole thing.
Sure, this is going to be easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to promise them either one.
Shall we? Have you made a decision? Okay, let's start with the gentleman on the left, Milan, right? You have a statement in your hands. Will you read it, Milan? Please. Thank you.
Clear, provable demonstrations of learning.
Can you repeat, please?
Yeah, with
Well,
love.
I think it's to show, it's centered, it focuses on the student-centered, so that it should be clear to them, and so that they can prove easily and demonstrate the progress of their learning, how much they have learned, and so we then we get a feedback from them.
So in a row.
Are we clear enough? We are
Okay. Well, that's another thing. That's about the feedback. So it's a clear, provable demonstration of learning. Definitely. That's the thing of you have to know.
People in the back are lost. We're lost
So
from the
it's a
beginning because we
clear-
didn't hear the statement.
I'll repeat.
Thank you.
The statement was clear, provable demonstrations of learning.
Okay.
And the argument was valid enough, exactly. So the student has to know, okay, at every point or in general during the lesson, why he or she is learning such a thing. Good. Okay. Daniela, Eva?
Authoritative teacher attitude.
Authoritative teacher attitudes.
So thinking strict, non-flexible. What else? But it's definitely out.
Yes.
It's not
Intimidating also.
intimidating. Yes.
Frustrating.
Good, it sounds. Well, there is an authority.
Frustrated and frustrating.
Yeah, that's already a case for further discussions. There should be authority within the classroom, but what type?
Oh yes, knowledge, skill.
Knowledge, positive authority, not this authoritative in a negative connotation. Good, it again refers to the partnership thing. Okay, Lindsay, you had it, right?
Individualized, customizable, learner-centered approaches. I'll let you guess. Real difficult. Really is.
Okay. Yeah, compared again to...
So by that, I suppose it means that you needs analysis at the beginning of specialized courses. It means also adapting your teaching or materials or whatever to your local context, thinking of your students' needs.
That's why, on the one hand, teaching today is maybe more difficult in the sense that you have to adapt your lesson to the student in every situation. You can have a ready-made lesson, but again, it depends on the student, on his or her skills, on the interest. You always have to change something. On the other hand, that's why it's interesting, because if you always repeat the same old thing, it's not interesting for you or for the student. Okay, thank you. Who has the next thing? Please, go ahead.
We've got proving the value of language through stories and speech.
Interesting. Through stories and speech.
Yeah, so we would have to say depends. If you make your students read a story and then it's followed up by a list of comprehension questions,
Okay.
or if you have them read the story aloud, out loud, then it's out.
Well,
But
when you
if you
say
make it
story,
personal, if you make it personal and have them share stories, then it's more skills-based to the focus on the speaking activity.
yes, there is
So
this question
it's
of
a
what.
tricky one.
Yes.
You got it right.
Yes, it's tricky, but that's the question of what you mean under stories here. Is it personal stories? Let's say it reflects more on stories in general, like, you know, some imaginary stories. In that respect, if it's just, you know, not talking about your personal experiences, but about stories, when you say stories like narrative stories, what would that refer to? Would it be more a modern approach, or? You understand what I mean by stories? Okay, so stories in the sense of reading some stories from, I don't know, from some books.
As a genre.
Yes, so that type, like a literary story.
So if you give them
A story,
assignment,
yes.
and then you discuss it
Yes.
later on and you give a school report.
Out, in that case it's out. Yeah, exactly. Maybe the definition is maybe not that precise, but stories here refer to the literary genre.
So by speech you meant delivering a speech on a
Delivering a
on
speech on a random topic, basically, just speaking, right? So in that case it would be out. If it's another version, it would be in. Yes. Thank
So
you.
it should always be guided and
Always centered towards the student. Yeah. Next statement we have.
Saying that learning languages is easy. This I really could not decide.
Right now.
It really seemed to me that if you set up the students and say, well, now we're going to do something easy, it sounds inviting and not discouraging to start with, but then if they find it difficult, they've been promised that it's going to be easy, and then they get into it and they find that it's hard, then they're likely to think, okay, well, I must be stupid because this was supposed to be something easy and I still don't get it. So then in that sense, it sets the student up to feel frustrated and discouraged. But on the other hand, you wouldn't want to say, now we're going to do something very hard, because that's also discouraging. So I really couldn't figure out how I
Make up your
felt.
mind there.
I couldn't figure out how I felt about this statement.
Imagine if a student comes to you at a first lesson of English and says, is it difficult to learn English?
No, then I would say, no, it's not difficult. You can definitely do this.
Okay, and he says, but I mean, there are so many things and tenses and vocabulary. I don't think I can do that. It's usually a common thing they start with.
Right, and I would say, you know what, lots of other people, just like you, your age, have also learned this, and you can definitely do this.
Okay, yeah. Well, there's also this other aspect of saying, well, it's not an easy task, but it can be done. But in general, saying that languages are a piece of cake is not, let's say, that modern as an approach. It's more of saying, yeah, it's a challenging task, but
You will
that's
have
why
to
you're
do some
here.
work.
Exactly.
But you can
That's
do
why you're with me, and that's why we'll manage it. You can do that. That would be it. It's more of an out statement, because it refers more to your statement of, what if you keep saying it's easy and the student doesn't understand it and feels, oh my God, I'm
it's not
stupid.
easy.
Yeah,
Right.
so it's better to always say, okay, we'll do it, but you know, step by step. That's why you are the partner and mentor in that situation.
So perhaps we should refrain from making that judgment altogether.
Exactly.
And leaving it up to the student to decide.
Yes, that's the diplomatic version
The
of
labeling is out.
Yeah, it's doable, exactly. It's not, nothing is easy if you don't put any effort in it, but it's doable. That's why we'll work together. Good, thank you. What do we have?
Language labs, it sounds very in.
What are language labs?
The colleagues here helped me. It has to do with the follow-up activities after you've learned something, and then you do it on the
Or is
internet, or
like with tapes.
Yeah,
where you listen.
I'm not sure about the follow-up. Yeah, what is language laboratory? Have you heard of this?
Oh, we had this in college with
You
headphones.
have that
You
in
sit
college, yeah.
And you sit in the booth, and you sit in the booth and you listen
Any
to
type
headphones.
of clothes, let's say.
Okay.
In a very dark room.
That depends.
Now it's all coming back to
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
And we were required to spend a certain number of hours
Uh-huh.
in the listening
Closed
to tapes of
environment.
French, and it was individual, so you would have the regular class in a group, and then outside of the class for the homework or whatever, you would attend the lab and you would rent the little tape and you would sit in this little dark booth and listen to these things on headphones.
You said that was in college. How about today? Have you seen it anywhere?
But that sounds outdated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why?
that shows how old I am.
Why is it outdated? Why would you have to go to, let's say, so-called lab to listen to the language? Why don't you do it anymore?
We can go abroad and...
It's everywhere. You don't need to go.
So
It's
that's
everywhere.
out.
That's out. It's completely
out.
out. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Oh, so.
You mean, and it's out because it's separated, like because it's in a separate thing.
I think
That you want to bring it
the
in.
physical thing is out, but the
Yeah,
actions of
The listening is in.
That's
Listening is
still
always
there.
in. But the thing is
Listening
having a
is in,
separate
but it's
lab where
still-
you go to the. And I think the reason it was separate was for technology. I mean, we had these enormous. I remember in high school,
Yes.
these bizarre giant tape things in the desk, and just for technological reasons, they couldn't have it everywhere, and it had to have its own special room.
Well, in any case, that's the thing. You're integrated today within the world, and you don't have to have separate spaces to learn English. It just depends which actually part of, let's say, the aspect you will choose. So the term language labs and the whole concept of the language lab is out, definitely. And we have one more, I believe, right? Or not? One more, yes.
Frameworks, benchmarks, and other asset-based approaches to assessment. First of all, we didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
But then we thought it's in because framework, well, it reminded us of common European frameworks, so that's
Okay,
it.
yes, exactly.
Must
Very
be
good.
something modern.
Excellent.
Benchmarking, well, another modern, well, not so modern.
Very used even in Croatianism. Croatian word for
Overused.
benchmarking is benchmarking.
Benchmarking.
So what does
Is
that
there a
mean?
Croatian word for that?
It's like setting standards. A benchmark is a standard, basically.
Setting standards,
Other assessment.
asset-based approaches. Well, we weren't sure what it was, so.
Well, the general idea, what does it refer to? Frameworks, benchmarks, assessments,
Something measurable.
something measurable.
Yeah.
So we would say
It's in.
It's in. People want to have results. That's why you have all these certified exams today, and the classic standard courses are out. It's a shift. You can see the shift in schools, but the certified exams, you want to have it recognized in the world, and you want to have a proof of it. One of the, that's it regarding the statements, right, if I'm correct? Okay. Thank you, you've done it very well. One of the reasons why I've given you these not, let's say, simple expressions in statements is also a reason how I would, let's say, do it with students. Obviously not with this topic, it would not be methodology. The point what I wanted from you was to actually get the basic meaning of it. And that's one of the things that we all teach students is you will never know every single word because the text you get are authentic, not the text from the course book. So you have to find your way in getting the basic meaning. You can return to the overall meaningfulness, right? So it's all a part of actually integrating the students in the real life situation, not in just, isolated or adapted situation. Let's just now repeat whether we're all clear with what in and out is, these statements you have. In or out?
In.
In? Okay, let's see. It should be green. It is, good. Okay. Authoritative? Out. Okay. Red? Yes. This long thing?
Yeah.
In. Yes. Okay. Language labs?
Out.
Okay. Individuals, applies approach. In. Using technology?
In.
In, definitely. And
Out.
out. Yes. Now, to stop talking only about these theoretical aspects, let's see how you would connect it to the less theoretical expression. If you have on the one side the in factor, the competences, so teaching everything, language, skills, ability, what's the out part of teaching language? You don't teach anymore so you teach competences, not
Grammar.
structure, grammar. Good. That's all. The language, the grammar itself. Okay.
It's really challenging for me.
Yes. So today you teach not just language, but culture and all this knowledge around. So what's out? You teach the language with the culture, not just
Language of
Part.
language part, yeah, grammar. They are interchangeable there. Overall meaningfulness is definitely in. Out is, or not overall meaningfulness, but specific, good, or isolated, the same thing. Interactivity and gaming, definitely. What's out then? Sorry? Drills, yes, exactly. Those paper-based drills that you usually gave tons of worksheets of handout. handouts. And this new thing, the top down is in. We'll explain it now more. Bottom up is out. Okay. I'll give you.
Can I ask you something? So, okay, we all like to take these drills because they have become boring to us and they're boring to our students. But sometimes they're very helpful and useful as a method of, you know, the more you repeat it, the better you learn it. And I have some students who just go, okay, I will just go.
Well, of course, what I said before also, it doesn't mean that you replace everything with the top-down activities. It should be combined, and you'll see at the end also the let's say, my idea of combination.
It also depends on the learning style.
Depends on the learning
and on their
style.
age, because the experience is really, I think they develop as a person. Right?
Definitely, but again, the main accent should be on this meaningful part. That's why, for example, when you see the certified exams or in general, everything is based on checking whether you really got the point, not just checking one word. Of course, you have those exercises, but the first main thing is if you got the point.
Okay.
Because if you got the words but you didn't get the point, sometimes probably you've seen the students, they read a whole text, they know all the words, but they're like, so what did you read?
Yeah, and the opposite also happens, where you have a text with, it has some isolated, very difficult words, and it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
They don't know, and then I say, do you know what this word means? No, I don't know what that word means, but I got the whole idea of the whole thing anyway. And they're amazed, actually, that if it's a well-written text, they can understand the whole thing, in spite of the fact that it's got a handful of words they've never seen before.
And that's, again, what we say regarding the overall meaningfulness. It's when you connect it to people in the real world, they really need to know. I mean, yes, today everything is more, let's say, superficial. But on the other hand, you want to teach them the basic point of what they've read, not just the isolated part. As a teacher, you will come to the isolated, or let's say, bits and pieces of vocabulary. But the main point is to see, okay, did you get it or not? That's the idea. So this top-down, bottom-up approach, just to explain, it's actually, the concept sounds strange, but it's a very simple thing. I'll give you two stories, and you'll tell me which one is which and what types of thinking you should actually include in it. The lady next to Eva, could you read the first story on the left?
On the lunch, your friend tells you a story about a recent holiday, which was a disaster. You listen with interest and interject at appropriate moments, maybe to express surprise or sympathy.
Good, thank you. And the lady behind? Could you?
That evening, another friend calls you to invite you to a party at her house the following Saturday. As you've never been to her house before, she gives you directions. You listen carefully and make notes.
So,
You make notes.
and well, if you don't want to lose your way, hopefully you do. And the idea of how the stories are different in the sense of way of thinking. Somebody tells you a joke. When do you react? At which point? So how do you know? The punchline, for example. In this one here, when do you react? I mean, what do you have to get? Somebody else gives you directions. Which parts do you have to get? Can you leave something out? No. If you lose one thing, you lost. So which one is which? Which one is top down? Which one is bottom up? Getting the punchline would refer to what? What type of an activity? Any idea? So somebody tells you a joke, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and say, ah, ha, 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 like a joke. You know, and somebody finishes, and you got the whole story finally, and you reacted. The overall story. I see it's not very clear.
Bottom up.
No. Okay, that was very undiplomatic of me. So the bottom up would be when you give direction, meaning bit by bit, you do things. If you lose one part of the direction, you lost, right? You can't find your way. That's bottom up. You start from one to another thing to get to the house. To get the joke, you have to get the whole meaning of the joke. Otherwise, you cannot react. Right? If you read just one sentence, okay, and you're waiting, right? Once you read once you've heard the whole story, then you react. Yeah, clear?
Yes.
Yes. I don't see any. Yes.
But
Okay,
what
so
it basically means that both are good to use. I mean,
yes, of course they're
once
both
you
good to
I mean,
use.
yeah.
Of course they're both good to use. But the point is just that you usually start with the meaning of the whole thing. What I said, you interchange both actions. But today, again, when you see, for example, exams and the types of things they test, for example, Cambridge exams, what they test is not just the isolated vocabulary. They test the paragraph, the meaning of something, the opinion about a certain thing. So they test one bigger sequence of things, not just one isolated sentence, right? Before, in previous exams, you had one sentence or one word, you had to put it inside. Again, in exams, you have other examples of bottom-up activities, but they are interchangeable. But the main focus is on the meaning. That's why you have very long texts in the exams, because they want to see how well you find the meaning. And you always have less time to do it. You never have, just enough time to read everything casually. So that would be the idea. Okay. So, in reading activities, I'll just give you a couple of reading activities. I will read them to you and you will tell me if they're top-down or bottom-up. Meaning, top-down means the more they are general, they're more focused on the meaning. Bottom-up means they focus on an isolated part of something, right? So, for example, when you read for gist, probably you've seen such an activity. A gist, like a core of something,
That's
the main
top
point,
down.
that's top-down. Okay? If you read for detail, that's bottom-up. Finding the extra word, the one extra word, bottom-up. Okay? Paraphrasing, top-down. You have to give the meaning on your own. Skimming and scanning,
Top down.
top-down, exactly. Find the main point. Now you got it. Gap filling with the word previously given, bottom-up. The same thing for listening. Summarizing, top-down, exactly. Gap filling with missing words. Yes. Listening for word endings, like the final word. Bottom-up. Listening for the main idea. Down. Listening for word order patterns. Yeah, you listen for the specific pattern, right? And multiple choice answers to the text, the famous A, B, C, D, long sentences. So you have a text, you know that in the exams. You have a long text, and then they ask you 6 questions with A, B, C, D paraphrased answers. Top down, they want to see the meaning of it. Okay. Okay, so, any questions regards that? Is it clear what the difference is?
I just wonder, what is this classification based on? Is it some...
The top-down, bottom-up? Well, actually, it's a linguistic approach that is used just in the sense of the terminology, but it's a very logical thing. It's nothing. That's why I said it's not the point of remembering what top-down or bottom-up is. It's the point of remembering that today it's all about the meaning. Right? So you have everything integrated, but it's just called like that, the top-down approach. And probably you'll see now in the books as well, most of the activities are based on this overall idea, like, put something in a paragraph, paraphrase it, give your opinion, what they want to say, and then you have bottom-up exercises, but it's more on whether you got the whole idea of the text, right? Obviously, the technologies that help you out with that are interactive workbooks, which you'll see when you also get global, that it's, well, in my case, what I've seen is the cutting edge, definitely, workbook, because it integrates not just the exercises, but all materials, video, listening, online exercises, and also DVD-ROM exercises. Grammars today are not just grammars, but grammars in context again, right? And you have different variety of audio and video materials, real-life situations to help yourself with. And of course, technologies that facilitate, just, for a variety in classrooms, Skype, iPod, Moodle, if you know what it is. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I use it.
You use it? Who uses it? Sorry. So what is it? What
I actually use it. I don't use it in my teaching. I used it kind of as a student. I used it in order to create an online course that I'm teaching.
Okay.
So I participated in a seminar, and it's basically an online system where everybody who was kind of participating in the seminar could post things and then discussion chats.
It's a platform, basically, to learn. And webinars, well, suppose you've seen some. Macmillan had the first one, I believe, webinar. So seminars or conferences online, right, to make it easy there. Okay, so just to repeat, meaningful is the main thing altogether. It's, you have to check the meaning of whether the student understood it or not, right? You start with that. Nice word, ubiquitous. Any idea what it is? Oh, wow. Yes, around, everywhere around, exactly. It's, language is all around you. It has to be interactive, fun, benchmarked or has to have some standards. And, well, tailor-made again depends on the classroom, but it means you have to adjust it to the student. So the way how I've put, let's say, some sort of a recipe for a lesson, again, that's my creation, but it depends on your students. How, let's say, a good ESL lesson would look like. You would put, let's say, 3 top-down activities, meaningful ones, 2 bottom-up, 1 fun, depends on you which one you would choose. 1.5 technology activity. What is half? Any idea?
Homework sounds.
Homework does, or actually, well, I put it like that to say just that you always have to have a plan B, which means if the technology doesn't work out, have a half prepared on the paper. Okay? A lot of cooperation, the student-teacher partnership, a bit of your personality. It has to be personalized, yours and students, and as much as possible, not authoritative behavior, but positive authority. Okay? Mix it all up. You don't have to follow it in that way. And hopefully you will get a satisfied student. Okay.
Shall we help you?
Sorry? Oh, that's fine. So, we'll just do a quick, and I did it on purpose to have 10 minutes left, a quick exercise on whether you got how the combinations of lessons should look like. So you have a global book, it's an intermediate, I believe, from Lindsay. Right, so I would love it if you could open it, well, at least one of the books. We'll do it in groups, like half-half. Just 2 quick groups to work on. Okay. So please open your book. At least one in the group. We'll have 2 groups, like let's say the first 3 rows can work together. So 1, 2, 3, and the last 2 rows can work together. Okay. So I would like you to, so you can open just one in the group, whoever wants to look at it. 2 groups. The first 3 rows is one group, this last 2 rows is the second group. Okay? So just one book for each group. And please open it on page 104. 104. I would just like you to cooperate together. Actually, that's the point of it. 104 is the page. The lesson is love and hate. A very modern and, interesting topic. So 104. Okay. So 2 groups, as I said. First group is 1, 2, 3, the rows, and the last 2 rows is the grouping. But you will all work on the same topic. So you have exactly 7 minutes until 4:25.
What are we doing?
So 104 is the, I'll explain. 104 is the lesson. You have the lesson called A Short History of Tractors in Ukrainian. This part is not about tractors, don't worry. Okay. Now, the point is why I'm doing it this way. I want you to create a lesson plan. The point is not to read in detail the lesson, okay? But I want you to create a lesson plan, so quickly skip through the text to see what it is about. And I want you to create a plan, well, in this way, possibly, of what types of activities you would put together to teach reading skills. Okay? Vocabulary, for example. So quickly go through the type of the text you have. And I'm doing it on purpose in a time-limited frame because I want you to think quickly. So just types of activities. The ones you have already written down, use them, obviously. The ones you would add to get everything included, add them in your groups. Okay? Just to create reading or vocabulary. Okay? Just to put together 3 top-down. So tell me what type of activity you would use. I don't know, what I said before, multiple choice or something, and put together a lesson plan for reading. Okay? 5 minutes or 6 hours. Good.
So, make some activities to teach the students.
So don't read in detail. Reading, teaching reading or vocabulary of the lesson. The point is not to read the story, but the types of activities you have around them, right?
What would the page would just
If you read the whole story, imagine that you have to create a lesson and you read all the stories in the book. There's no time for that. Just read the album.
It's a good story.
From what I read, it's good.
Validation studies. What did you recommend? No, we're supposed to
Well, here in
Shall we try what you put together and discuss where you stopped? Okay. Let's see what you would teach them, what type of vocabulary, about what? This group here, what type of vocabulary would you teach them? What does it talk about, the story? Have you gone through it quickly? Mm-hmm. What is the story about?
Father remarrying.
Father remarrying, so daughter-father relationship. Okay, so what type of vocabulary could you teach them? Have you seen through?
Mm-hmm. Some adjectives.
Sorry? Adjectives, how they reacted, good. Okay, do you have the same thing, for example? Yes? For example, so you can have different things you want to teach them, obviously, but one of them is exactly father-daughter relationship, so adjectives, how she reacted. Okay, so how did you put it together? How would you start? What would you do? Anything? No? What is your goal? I mean, what do you want the students to talk about in the end? We said it has to be an immediate need. So how are you going to transfer it to the student? How is he going to use the adjectives? Where? On whom? On the father-daughter and their, I don't know, widow? How would they use it in the real world? They would talk about whom?
Themselves.
The parents, themselves, their own relationships.
To have dialogue.
Their opinion.
Okay, so they would talk about their opinion. Okay, so you would go through the text. So the top-down activity, what would you make them get? What type of a thing? I asked you that thing now.
Just paraphrase what's the situation.
Exactly. You had it also, I believe, here in the sense of the questions, right? Like who is who? What is the situation, right? Or the story, right? You could read or listen, depends. So what is the situation of the story? That's already top-down activity, right? You just want to see whether you got the meaning of the story, okay? What next? You stop there. Okay, so if you want to teach them adjectives and you want to use, let's say, bottom-up, so isolated sentences, what would you give them? What type of activity? Yeah, filling, you could maybe change the text. Opposites, okay, good. Inserting into the text, that would be the bottom-up, okay? Going towards the end of making them use more and more in their own vocabulary. Description about them, so using those adjectives in their own way, okay? What else? Anything fun? Anything through technology? Anything that...
Make them role play, the dialogue between
Yeah,
the father
the role
and
play.
the daughter.
Sorry.
Try to find the connection between the tractor and the story.
Okay, that's a bit difficult. No, yeah, because I also know that, where is that tractor? But that's the whole book, right? So it's a bit difficult to look at that.
I
Okay.
would definitely bring that up in terms of in terms of a reading strategy. Most of them are probably looking to the headline very much for a clue. And here I would definitely talk about the fact that the headline is actually misleading.
Yes,
and it's a place where they're accustomed to looking for a key word to the shortcut to the thing. And I would ask how many of you expected this to be about tractors and how many of you were confused and looking for the tractor, okay, and that this was actually a purposeful strategy of the writer of this book. Probably, right, to put this in a purposely misleading sort of way.
To say, wait, am I reading
There's
it
no
right?
tractor in here.
Well,
Okay. And the book is called A Short History of Tractors in Ukrainian, but I'm sure it's actually not a short history of tractors in Ukrainian.
Yeah, that was as the author. Yeah, that was the one of the reasons. And also when we chose the extracts from literature, we decided to leave the titles in.
The original titles.
Because the idea would be that perhaps one student in the class would want to read it.
But I would also bet that some of your students, I mean, I've had such situations, I could maybe ask them a question, so what is the connection between the tractor and the father and the daughter? And some would try to make up the whole story.
Oh right,
probably.
Yeah, they would feel very insecure because they're so accustomed to the title. They're not accustomed to this kind of trick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So out of the activities you have in the book, which would be the top-down activities for reading? What did the author put there? What's the activity to check whether they got the meaning?
So you can speak
right. What is this? What is the situation?
Yes. What else? You have number 3. Comprehension check, ABC.
Although there's a bit of bottom-up, I'd say, as well, because they have to underline. If we looked carefully, it's underlined the part of the text which gives you the answer.
Yes.
So, for example, if you look carefully at question 1, what's her first reaction to her father's news? They can't, they'll underline bonkers at one point, and they don't know what that word is.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So that's when we start working on the bottom-up, because that's when they're, what does bonkers mean?
There's another word that helps you, like, please let it be a joke, so it kind of helps you get the meaning. So basically you give paraphrased expressions that again makes you get the meaning, like, okay, I don't know bonkers, but please let it be a joke, it obviously doesn't sound good.
Okay, but is the answer A?
Well, I must say I haven't read the whole